This is Marcos from Tomorrow's June. This episode of Voice Parties was sponsored by All Roads Garage Doors. Call now at 510-375-8756. All Roads Garage Doors. Get your garage door needs at All Roads.
Well, you can tell because he doesn't have abs right now. So
he's got a very alcoholic mullet there.
The sugar is keeping him from keeping the abs.
Dude, he was. They're both. Those are two of my favorites. Like, I'm not just saying because I'm a fucking spick, but like.
No, they're two of my favorites.
Guerrero and Mysterio.
Yeah, like Chris Benoit too. That whole Radical crew are all fucking dope, man.
Yeah.
Like they're
the Radicals and like what was the name of the WCW group? The Filthy Animals.
Filthy Animals.
Yeah.
With Nick, what's his name? Kidman.
Yeah.
Kidman.
Oh, he's going for the mask.
Rey Mysterio.
Chavo Guerrero. No, Juventud, right?
Yeah.
Juventud.
Revolution was dope too. But
Yeah. So welcome to the Voice Party, everybody. In honor of Halloween, we're watching some Halloween Havoc matches right over here. Yeah, we're recording now. So we're watching Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio from Halloween Havoc 97.
So we're doing this Halloween episode. I thought we were recording. Let's just go with it.
we were all talking about what we were gonna do for the next few episodes, and it's like we have no idea how long our producer hit the record button. Because that's how we roll.
It's
you know?
spontaneous.
Spontaneous. It's a party.
I've already said so.
It's a party. It can be edited out.
Oh, I'm just kidding.
I'm pretty sure that part where you said that certain tragic thing wasn't real, is all a hoax, will be edited out. Don't worry.
Yeah, I mean, the bodies have never been found, so I'm just kidding. Not funny.
So for variety's sake, the listeners at home may notice that one Gaspar Bernal is not
Who
with
is
us.
that?
Oh, it's like that, huh?
Nah, he did give us a week?
2 months.
A 2-week notice?
Oh, yeah. He gave us a week notice.
A week notice for 2 months off. That motherfucker. This is just... Imagine if you did that at a job. We'll be here for 2 months. You guys
Don't hire nobody.
You guys keep up the good work.
He didn't say don't hire anybody. I know a guy.
I might bring a guy in or whatever. Yeah, we could bring him in.
I know a guy. I actually had Phil and I were going to bring this guy in because we were going to do a backyard wrestling podcast at one point.
Yeah.
And he's funny.
Okay.
And he's insightful. And I'm not going to say any names.
Yeah, we'll put him in the intro. We'll take Gaspar out. We'll put him in.
Gaspar, what up?
I actually have a couple of guests. I don't want to say them right now, but that expressed interest in coming back.
Okay.
That they really enjoyed it. So
definitely.
We'll figure it out. But
is a particular guest had said they wanted to do movie reviews with us.
Yeah.
And be delighted to have that person.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, yeah, that we just gotta think of time of when big ass fucking Amazon Prime man just pulled up in my driveway. It's always exciting. It's like Christmas morning every time one of these fucking trucks shows up, man.
New movies?
Or we're going to get gunned down. There's
a mafia army. It's a front. It's a cover. Yeah. It's not actually an Amazon van.
So the thing that you wanted to do with this is we're gonna talk about...
In particular, we were going to review Sorcerer. We saw the film recently, and a rewatch for one of us, and first time for the other.
You know what? It felt like the first time because last time I watched it with my dad and uncle, and the way these guys are, it's like we were having beers. I was like, all right, go bring me another beer. So I missed out on a lot of things that I already watched. So it was like watching it for the first time again for myself too. Oh shit, food's coming out. But yeah, what? Yeah.
I still, at first, when you told me that it was directed by the same gentleman that directed The Exorcist,
yeah,
I was like, oh my, and it shouldn't be a shock when one director switches both genre and subject so wildly, right? But still, it was kind of jarring at first. But then I realized, some of the musical cues in this are a little familiar.
Well, what's crazy is most of his movies were like Sorcerer. Another film that he directed was The Hunted with what's that other Benicio del Toro and what's that guy's name? Old guy from No Country for Old Men.
The one that played the sheriff.
Yeah,
Agent K and Men in Black.
Yep.
Tommy Lee Jones.
You've seen that movie, The Hunted, right? That was William Friedkin also.
Holy smokes!
So his movies are more like Sorcerer than Exorcist is nothing like.
Right, Exorcist was sort of his like wild departure.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, there's a lot of similarities in his like the stills and stuff like that. I think I mentioned this, like that one, the Sorcerer. And I've read this about it. It wasn't as popular when it came out because it came out the same weekend as Star Wars, the first Star Wars. Like, dude, that's yeah. Anything that came out that weekend, you probably have never heard of.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then like we were saying, it's a movie that, especially with the beginning of it, has a lot of what was it Jerusalem or whatever. What was the languages? There's 4 different languages.
Oh yeah, there's like 4 different languages because there's 4 or 5 different
like the Avengers of crime.
Yes, this was like more like the Justice League of crime.
The Justice League of crime.
Because they didn't take an entire movie to develop each of these characters,
and it's 4 different type of criminals.
Yep, and they shoved them all together in one film. So this is definitely the JLA of crime. Yeah,
this is it's like. Like when I watched this movie, it kind of reminded me of like, the ending, like literally like the ending of Goodfellas could have been the beginning of this. Like, how Henry Hill, I mean, that's kind of what
totally.
The movie's about. It's criminals that are fucked where they're at because of the crimes and they got to escape.
And there's that ambiguity left on, with Goodfellas, we know Henry Hill ended up in witness protection.
Yep.
But there are some...
But this is like 70s where they're... Well, I mean, like the Sorcerer is...
Right.
It's yeah.
And there are some mafioso movies where it ends where the criminals just go off into the sunset or they go off and hide, and it's ambiguous as to whether or not they made it out without hitmen taking them out. We can't let you be a witness here, buddy.
Yep.
Oh, dead. But this is where they end up. They end up in a desperate situation.
In the jungle.
No less.
Which is dope, because a lot of the stuff that, like in some movies, this is what I like about older movies. Like the Godfather 2, for instance.
Classic.
They have shots of New York in the 70s. And a lot of that was still, like it's gone now. And you see a lot of these shots and it's like, time traveling, like you see, and this was shot in the jungle, and the way it was in that certain time, it's not that anymore. So
they probably have built modern bridges. There's a scene in that in this movie where the characters have to take a Jeep and drive it over the ricketiest of
that's one of the best scenes I've ever seen, dude.
Yes, it's a great scene. Very dramatic, very just, oh my gosh, are they going to make it? Because the bridge looks like it was built by the ancient not even the Aztecs, the Olmecs. It looks like it was built by the Olmecs themselves and just kind of left there to rot.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that these poor buggers have to drive this van across it in one of the biggest monsoons of the year.
And then interestingly also, like the reason they're driving, spoiler alert, the reason they're driving those Jeeps is a nitroglycerin needs to, which I didn't know this until I watched this movie. That's how they put out those oil fires. They have to drop nitroglycerin over the fire to basically wipe out all the oxygen so that the fire stops breathing. And that's...
Chemistry is something else.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think that something such as nitroglycerin, because it's explosive material, would be the thing to put out fires.
Yeah. Fire. Yeah.
The irony.
A negative cancels a negative.
Well, there you go. Negative times a negative equals a positive. Yeah. Strange.
Verbal high five.
Yeah. Verbal high five indeed.
And another thing that like this movie, which I saw this in the Joker, which we watched recently, a lot of the people look. I mean, obviously, this is a 75, I believe, when this film was made, or 76, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these actors, I mean, I don't even know who the fuck they are. It's something special about watching a film that has actors you don't recognize, because it feels like a real story, like a real, like not a movie, you know?
Well, you know, I'll give you an example. When they cast the first ever live action full feature length Superman movie in color
With Christopher Reeves,
they said, you know, the Warner Brothers people got into a meeting and they said, you know what, whoever we choose for this part has to feel as if they stepped out of the fog, right out of the ether, right out of the collective imaginations of the American consciousness. Why? Because if we get Robert Redford, it's not going to be Superman on screen. It's going to be Robert Redford playing as Superman. It's going to be name classic actor here playing as Superman. And they didn't want that. They wanted, you know,
Robert Redford was supposed to be Superman.
Well, no, I'm just giving that as an example.
Oh, okay. Because you know who I read was supposed to be? I saw it somewhere. Sylvester Stallone was supposed to be Superman. Imagine that.
Shock me at all.
How's it going?
Hey, Lois.
Louis! Louis! Oh, Lord.
Yeah, I can't picture that.
Hey, Krypton. He exploded and I
Yeah, keep that Krypton away from me. Bro. I don't feel good. Sylvester Stallone.
Now, speaking of famous actors, this film, and I realize a lot of our listeners have probably never seen it, so we should definitely run the premise a bit. So you mentioned earlier that there were this handful of criminals.
Yep, four criminals, and each of them comes from a different location. You have, and it's not really clear for some of them why, which is good.
They've run away.
Yeah,
like the Frenchman leaves me with the most interesting. I assume it's money laundering.
Yeah, it's some kind of fraud. It was actually something to do with I forgot. I had it at the top of my head. Bribery.
Yeah, that's
and
what
it
was
a high level banker,
or a bureaucrat, or someone. And he was in a situation where the person that he worked with was unable to support him.
Yep.
And it got so bad that the person he was talking to, who is in cahoots with, just went and shot themselves.
Yeah, your lawyer shoots himself. He's fucked. You gotta go live in the fucking jungle now.
He left
you have no fucking chance if your lawyer
jungle.
ops himself, Epstein's himself.
Like, I'm in the jungle now. It's over with.
Yeah, and then there's another one. The Jerusalem guy was like a political uprising. And they're using terrorism to get their point across. That was one of the other guys, the demolition expert.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was a sicario, a hitman from Mexico, which is very common to find
in the area where they were, because they were in Central America.
Yeah, Mexico, and then there was the star of the film, a thief. What was he? Armed. I don't know what to call it, but yeah, a thief.
Oh yeah, this idiot. He's this genius. Well, actually, no. He was. The irony is, so this guy and
Roy Schneider.
His crew.
Or Schreider. I don't know how to pronounce it.
His crew, the Irish. It was a group of Irish guys, presumably with the Irish mob.
Yep.
Or possibly operating on their own. You never know. Rob a church. But apparently, and I guess that Christopher Nolan must have seen this very movie because it echoes a moment in The Dark Knight. When they rob the priests are meeting, I guess it's the priests and their deacons or whoever else is on staff, and they're counting up their money. And so the criminals, the Irish guys, come in with their guns out, and they rob the joint, and the priest goes, "Do you have any idea whose church this is?" Similar to that moment in Dark Knight where the bank teller's like, "Do you have any idea whose bank this is?"
Yep.
You guys are dead, you know?
Yep.
So
and it turned out to be a like Italian mafia ran church, which
big mistake.
A lot of freaking stuff, a lot of his stuff. I had only seen The Exorcist, obviously, because he's popular, but not in my generation.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually saw his other film, the French Connection, which is filmed before The Exorcist. It actually landed him The Exorcist. Like the writer saw that and showed it to the producers of The Exorcist and said, "This is the guy I want to direct my film." And a lot of his stuff has to do with like real events. The French Connection is based on a real story. The Sorcerer, I don't know if that's based on a real story, but it feels real. It seems like it must have happened. The only reason he did The Exorcist because it felt real to him, and obviously that shit. It's funny enough, he didn't even think that was when he made it. He wasn't planning on making a scary movie. He just wanted to make a movie, and it was not like, oh, I'm making a horror film. I'm just doing a story that I think is real, and that's why you can see it definitely feels real.
Well, we're definitely not going to get too much into the topic of exorcism. That's for another episode.
Oh yeah, no.
But
I'm just saying, it has a level of fear into the films that make it like you believe the story.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. But I was just going to say that I think that there are a lot of people out there that do believe in demonic possession. And that there is reasonable proof. I think that if you are definitely, if you're a Christian, there's evidence in the Bible of it happening. So just open up your Bible and read it. That said,
Sorcerer.
Back to Sorcerer.
It makes you think the Sorcerer, especially knowing that this is the director of The Exorcist. The first thought is this is a horror film. It's not. Let's clarify that. It's not a horror film. Because that was my first thought. Oh, same guy that Exorcist, is going to be a good movie.
Yeah, when you handed the DVD to me, I said to myself, oh, it's going to be a nice, not that a film has to be horror for me to enjoy it. I love all kinds of films.
Yep.
But I was just, this is going to be some territory I haven't explored yet. All right. I remember how disturbed I was when I saw The Exorcist. So imagine my surprise when we sat up and we watched it. And
I expected like the Rainbow and the Serpent. Remember that one?
Yeah,
that's what I expected when I heard this, just because of the Anyways, so the plot, back to what we're talking
back to
about.
the setup. So you've got the Frenchman with some sort of weird business shenanigans gone wrong. You have the Sicario. You have the Israeli rebel who flees away from the occupiers essentially before they can get him. And then you've got. Then
there was that in the jungle, the bartender,
and the Irish thief.
But also I think it was in the jungle. There was that old man who was German.
He's an ex-Nazi.
Ex-Nazi.
But they didn't set it. Well, you don't really have to set a guy like that up, right?
Yeah.
You just go, oh yeah, he was he was German. Infantryman in the war, and then this was like the 1970s. So you're going, oh, we know which war you're talking about.
Yeah.
This guy's pretty old. Okay,
that's what I liked about the
shorthand.
Yeah, like they're all there, and it feels like well, I'm speaking based on movies I've seen, like in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah,
where they're in that jail. Like that's what it felt like at that. I mean, obviously not like that, but it's. I can see a lot of that happening, so it was awesome to see. And then there was that political uprising in the jungle with the farmers and all that. There's scenes in there that make the film look like a documentary at some point when the bodies when the pipeline first bursts.
Oh yeah,
remember that scene where they bring those burned bodies?
That scene, the scene where we're being introduced to what the village is like, looked very. I thought I was looking at a National Geographic piece. I didn't think I was watching a cinematic film.
Yep.
For a few minutes. Back to the Irish guy real quick. One of the biggest ironies is that the Irish gentleman himself did not shoot the priest. One of his buddies shoot the priest, right? And then that opening scene, which I think is the longest of the opening bits for character, where they have the Irishmen have the car crash because one of them does something stupid, unnecessarily so. And the only one to make it out of the car alive is the one that did the least. And he even says, like, I don't go in armed. You know, I'm not the type of guy to just murder someone in cold blood. And the Italians don't know that. So the head mafioso guy just goes, my brother died and he got killed, blood for blood. Yep. Go find the. But had the other guy still been alive, they might have gone after them instead. You know?
Yeah.
Too bad.
And
but that's kind of our hero of the story, like
a hero, like
protagonist.
That's the better, because they're all like they're all criminals.
Well,
that's what I like about the film. They're all fucking criminals, and I don't want to say bad.
You could make an argument that the Israeli guy was probably
not a bad guy.
Yeah,
but I mean, he was blowing up innocent people. So I mean, I could say that about ISIS and shit. Like, so yeah, that's where we're at in the film, and there's a lot of great shots of the jungle, which apparently I think he did before he even decided to film it, just because he liked certain. Obviously watched the movie, but I like the backstory of it, because this dude just made The Exorcist. I keep bringing that up. And he's traveling and he's looking at places that look, interestingly, the original person he had in mind to play that main character was Steve McQueen.
Oh,
that's who he wanted. And he said that Steve McQueen's, like, his look would have gone great with the background of the jungle, but Steve McQueen had just gotten married, so he wanted his wife to be involved in the film, to be a love story. But you watching the movie, would you want this to be a fucking love story? No, it doesn't work. It's a very, like, gritty and dark kind of a film that doesn't work with.
The most they could have done was, the Frenchman mentions at a certain point that he had a wife and kids back home. So you would have just had Steve McQueen play the Frenchman and then cut back to the wife at home just waiting to hear.
Let's not talk about it, but
not yet anyway.
And the cool thing, the reason it's called Sorcerer is because of the trucks. The truck is called Sorcerer.
That's true.
And that's what ultimately that's what the movie's about. It's they have to bring in these. So they have nitroglycerin that they have to use to put out the fires and the oil in the pipeline, and they need to bring the nitroglycerin into the fire, but they can't do it with a helicopter, because I didn't know this about nitroglycerin. If you shake that shit, boom,
everyone's dead.
Everyone's dead. It's especially
too dangerous.
In this one, it had the chemicals seeped into the paper, so the paper was fucking explosive. And that's crazy. I don't know. I learned, I love when I watch a film and I learn something new. Mm-hmm. So this is, for me, that was that. And the plot is they're trying to get out of the jungle. It's like they're exiled into the jungle as criminals, and they're working third world country style work,
doing pickup jobs. And,
getting harassed by the local government as illegal immigrants, which is a funny take, seeing white guys getting harassed by Latino INS. Yellow ICE. Yellow
taking bribes.
Yeah, which is something that happens here in the States. It doesn't get talked about much. Well, I'm sure it does, but like certain people that that's a whole other episode. But
Except the difference is these are guys who have committed crimes in their own countries, and I'm not saying there aren't people.
That they aren't those
that haven't. But there are definitely some people who haven't committed crimes in their own countries, and they're just like, I just really need a better life.
Yep.
I'm skipping a jump.
So they're working these shitty jobs, and they want to get out of that place, obviously because of that political uprising with it. And so I really liked how they set that up. Like, we're criminals, but I think we could do better than this. And that's when the job offer comes to, because they can't fly it there because the helicopter shakes too much, and they actually have to drive through the jungle to get to the explosion. I said 200 miles, something like that. And
200 miles.
They fix these trucks, and they have to prove themselves that they can drive, and these shitty looking trucks that look dope, man. I wish I could, like, those trucks look awesome.
They look like they would do fine over here in the States.
Yeah, so it's basically a journey. What would you classify this film under?
It's
action adventure.
It's an action adventure. I I'd classify it as a thriller, but action adventure.
Yeah.
Action adventure, definitely action adventure. It is a realistic blue collar workman's Indiana Jones.
Yeah. Indiana Jones, a criminal's Lord of the Rings.
Criminals, Lord of the Rings. Yes, even better. We have to drop the ring into Mount Doom.
Literally, Mount Doom is fucking exploding out of the ground.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
You know, I'll also say with this film, oh my gosh,
It's a dark film for sure.
But you know what's so great about it too, and I'm a scriptwriter, and
Yeah.
I love dialogue. I love Quentin Tarantino. I like Kevin Smith, that is, and I'm a bit of a wordsmith. But what impresses me about Sorcerer is that if you took all the dialogue out and you film this thing in black and white, it would be it could easily be a silent film, and you would still get what's going on. Granted, you'd have to have a few title cards thrown in there, 1 or 2 or 3,
Or none at all.
or possibly none at all.
Yeah, because they tell a story with their actions a lot.
And you just need to show a sign that says nitroglycerin, and people go, "Oh, nitroglycerin, okay," and the fire, and then okay, that's what they have to do. I mean, it would take away, without having subtitle cards, it would take away the context of these are desperate men, because otherwise, why would they be willing to do this?
Yeah.
But with a couple title cards in there, you really don't need that.
I would like to see this in black and white. That would have been dope.
Oh yeah.
And you know what else? One of my after watching this film, one of my favorite scenes from all the films I've seen is a scene where there's a tree that the road they're on is the dirt road in the middle of the jungle, and there's actually a tree that there was this big storm, and it knocked down a huge fucking tree. I don't even know what kind of trees these are in the jungle, those jungle trees basically, and it knocks over that tree. Remember that scene? And they can't get through, they can't go around, so
The most logical thing to do,
they have it right in their disposal.
right in the back of the truck.
Is the demolition expert from Jerusalem comes in and does his fucking rinky dinky rig with sand. And I remember watching this film with my dad the first time I watched it, and because he's a Steve McQueen fan, and I told him that I told him a little bit of this, and he just loves. He paused the movie at that point where that scene is where he creates that rig to have the nitroglycerin basically explode and clear the pathway for the tree, which he does.
Right.
After that scene, I remember talking to my dad, and he's like, "See, I know you like those superhero movies, but this is a great movie. Like this is a movie." Because those little very detailed scenes like that, they say a lot with very little.
That's true. The thing about superhero films and science fiction and fantasy in general, you look at a regular novel and you look at a sci-fi novel, you look at a fantasy novel, even a trilogy, the books tend to get a bit thicker as you go on. You know why? In genre fiction, because the writer has to spend a lot of time explaining to the reader new vocabulary and new concepts. Right? Most of us know.
You said this. Oh, sorry. You said this in a novel or in a comic book?
In a novel. I'm just using novels as an example. You have to spend, in a comic, you've got decades worth of backlog explaining how stuff works.
Especially certain issues, you don't need any more fucking character development. So
right.
Yeah, you need constant character development in a short amount of whatever time the story is.
Right, and so you're spending all this time explaining these science fiction-y or fantastic concepts that are brand new to the reader, whether they be MacGuffins or pieces of technology that are going to come into play later. And in quote unquote, in non-science fiction and fantasy works, you don't have to explain to someone how a door opens, right?
Yeah.
You just simply say the door opened. And in a film like this, you don't have to explain how nitroglycerin works. You just show it, explain that it is nitroglycerin, and then show how that works. Because
If
in theory,
if
most
they would have
people-
said dynamite, we would have not because
yeah.
I was like, what is nitroglycerin? That sounds like a drug. Like, no, it's fucking dynamite. Okay.
And most people in those days that were going to go see this movie had some sort of an idea on what nitroglycerin was. So the shorthand of this, that, and this is how tense this is easier than, oh man, we're on a spaceship and the spaceship's moving, but then we have to get the Eye of Argnor.
We have to turn
what's
on
the Eye of Argnor?
the flux capacitor.
I have
Like,
to
what
tell
the
you
fuck
what
is
the
that?
Eye of Argnor
Yeah.
is and how it works.
Yeah.
So, it's just you get to the meat a little bit quicker in non-genre films, I think. So,
Okay.
there you go.
And then
My theory.
I don't have anything to add. You pretty much said it. But on another I guess I don't want to speak too much on the ending because I want you to, whoever's listening, to watch it, obviously.
Of course.
But the one thing that I like about Friedkin is he did this in The French Connection, and he did this in this film too. There's a scene where at the end, closer to the end, when everything happens once, whatever you should expect to happen kind of happens, whatever, things happened, obviously. You think everything's okay, but then there's a scene somebody comes into the picture in the jungle, and he leaves you, I guess, up to debate whether, for you to decide what happens in the end, which he did that in The French Connection. I know that he does that just because he wants you to decide. And it's one of those endings that, oh shit, okay. You remember what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And the close-up that they have on this character and the kind of clothes this character is wearing make you go, oh, it's not over yet, is it?
Mm-hmm.
It's certainly not over.
Yep. A sequel could have been made off of that, but I don't think this kind of film needs a sequel. There's
No, some films don't.
Because it's not based on the guy, the protagonist. You know how some films are about the protagonist? This one is 4 protagonists, but not really. There's one main one, but yeah.
And even when a film is based on a protagonist, that doesn't necessarily mean you need a sequel. Sometimes it's just better to leave it alone. Like, how insulted do you think an entire generation would be if next year you hear the trailer in the 90s? He charmed you in the 90s. You heard his philosophy, simple as it may have been. He's seen life throughout the decades and has dispersed wisdom to anyone sitting and willing to listen. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we return once again with Forrest Gump 2.
Oh my God.
Life still like a box of chocolates.
Oh yeah.
I would be very insulted. Man. I would be like, you know what?
Dude, leave it alone.
Like, whoever, just Robert Zemeckis, just, nah, man. No. Fuck you.
Terminator 2. No, I'm just kidding. This came up. But yeah, that's our review. I mean, it's a great film. We should start a rating system for ourselves. 100%, 10 points. What do we? Well, let's start something. I give it a 10 out of 9 out of 10.
Okay, I definitely would give it a 9 out of 10 as well. Great cinematography, consistent feel for it. I normally don't praise a film for having a simple story, but it's a simple story that works.
It's a very simple story, and it's the shots, the way he shot the film. It all paints a really good story. So I say go watch it. 9 out of 10.
Yeah, go watch it tomorrow. Go watch it right now.
Rent it on. Well, you can't go watch it in theaters, but it's available online.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
That's Sorcerer.
Sorcerer. That's our review. All right. We're out. All right, that's one.